Hey guys, and welcome back to another installment of the web series Small Acts, where I take small instances of pop culture and critique them through a feminist lens in an effort to shift perspectives, or at least try to. Let's take a look at what's going on in the world of women. So I know I have been paused, MIA, AWOL, or whatever you want to call it, for a minute. But we are back with a new mic, with a new sound. The same cute girl is giving you all you need to know. But I honestly felt like the first couple of episodes, they were good, they were meaty, and I had a lot of time to think through what I've been wanting to say. But I also just felt like they were too polished and I want to talk more. So I'm literally just talking through my mic here. So when I was first thinking about this web series, it's literally that, a web series, not necessarily a podcast. I just uploaded these so that people could listen to them as well, because I find myself listening to podcasts when I do stuff. So that's why they're on Spotify, Apple TV, no, Spotify, iMusic, YouTube, and anywhere else you get your podcasts, basically. So why did I even start this series? So I want to talk about, in this episode, how did we get here? Who am I? And why do I even care about this stuff? And what things had to be true for Chelsea to even be here right now talking about all of these different things. So, feminism. I think feminism right now, feminism has a publicity problem. People hate that word. It's so polarizing for some reason. And I mean, I'm not going to say for some reason because I know why. People like to use identifiers. People like things that are black and white. And I think in order for it to be popular, or the reason why it has been popular in the way that it has been popular, is because when people think about the word feminism, it's just men against women, females against males, boys against girls. And I feel like that could not be any further from the truth. And I feel like people haven't even given it a chance, or haven't taken the time to even read a book. I'm not gonna say people haven't read books. I know I've read a couple books, but like people just haven't given it the time, thought, and the credit that it deserves, the movement deserves. And so you get these things like the girl bosses, and not saying that that's bad, because love a good girl boss. You're looking at a girl boss right here. But on a real though, it just puts people into boxes. And when people are put into boxes, and when it's black and white, you can't like mix the colors. It's harder to talk about, if that makes sense. So I started rambling about this because I said feminism has a publicity issue. And it's true. And a lot of people think that it's the word, the movement, feminist and feminism is even too far gone, to the point where they're coming up with, I guess, new terminologies and new words, basically, to identify the same thing. And it's the fact that we all really just want equity and gender equality. That's really it. That really is it. And then, before I get any more further into my speech on my soapbox, let's take a step back and let's hear a definition of the word feminism. And I'm not talking about the definition that is in Beyonce's song, which is a person who believes in the social, political, and economic equality of the sexes. That's great, but let's hear what ChatGPT has to say. Alright, so here I have a feminist. A feminist is someone who believes in and advocates for social, political, and economic equalities of all genders, and come from diverse backgrounds and can be of any gender. They work towards dismantling systemic inequalities challenging gender stereotypes and promoting equal rights and opportunities for all. Ooh, AI actually then went into key characteristics of what a feminist include, and that is believing in gender equality and equity, check. Challenging traditional gender roles and stereotypes, check. Supporting women's rights and empowerment, check. Advocating for intersectionality and inclusivity, better be, check. And then recognizing and working to dismantle patriarchal structures. That's really good. Also, guys, I came prepared and I have my line for what I want to talk about in Notion, and I used AI, and I'm like, hey, what do you think a feminist is? And I'm very pleased with this. For a baseline, that's really, really good. And to end it and top it off, this is what it finished by saying. It said, it's important to note that feminism is not about superiority of one gender over another, but rather about creating a balanced and just society for all. Anyone who supports these principles can identify as a feminist, regardless of gender, age, race, or background. I actually like that. I love that, actually. Wow. All right, Notion. Let's see what you say. Go on with yourself. I love that. But back to the meat and potatoes of this episode, this installment. It's really a selfish one, and it's talking about me. And I am hoping that whoever listens to this can understand where I'm coming from, what I'm saying, and understand what things had to be true for me to even get here. And I feel like why I have such a fiery spirit when it comes to this. I also implore you to use this to think about also why you have the beliefs that you believe. Why are you a feminist, or why do you feel so strongly about different ideologies and movements versus the other? All right, so the first thing I have here is my exposure to gender dynamics. That is a good question. I think growing up, shout out to my mother, my grandmother, my father, my auntie, everybody. Big up, Upa, big up. No, but really, really and truly, I always saw, and other people who grew up in Jamaica can probably relate to this, you saw a strong woman. At least that was my experience. You'd either have a single mother trope where a mother is either in the household, coexisting and co-leading with the dad, the father, or the father wasn't there, period. And so my first memories of that is with my grandma and my mom at first, because she played a pivotal role first the early years of my life. And then when it comes to my mom and dad, it was always them as a unit, and not necessarily everything is just on my dad or everything is just on my mom. It's like them as a unit, and then where either had weaknesses, the other would support. So I feel like I was very lucky that I had that exposure to that dynamic with gender. And so when it comes to roles, gender roles, it's whatever needed to be done was gonna get done, and that is just it. So I know it's a bit more, it's not as black and white. We don't subscribe to things being black and white here, but it's not as black and white, or it wasn't, this is who a woman is, and this is what the mother is, and this is what a father is, and you just stick to the perimeters of your role. There were those gender roles there, but they were very much enmeshed and things that my family decided on for themselves rather than a societal thing. And I really, really, really appreciated that. As I'm getting up there in age or maturing into my womanhood, that's something I really appreciated having, and I still have it. So love you, mom, love you, dad. Shifting gears, so that's like early gender dynamics inside the home. And then, like, yeah, my grandma is just the definition of strong but also empathetic and loving. So I've only ever really seen really good matriarchs. And in the case that it wasn't just a matriarch, it was, I don't know what the opposite of a matriarch is, or like balanced version, not the patriarchy. So yeah, it was either that or super balanced, which I am very grateful for. But this is just inside the family. So shifting to my next point, guys, is what was my experience growing up in Jamaica and Jamaican culture. And I hope people put their comments below, and I hope we have a discussion about this in the comments. But I feel like it's when I started to gain awareness that there was a world outside of just like my family, is when you started to like the rage basically, for lack of a better word, the rage started to build, or I started to realize, oh, what I'm experiencing is not necessarily the norm. And I have here that my earliest memory, and I think I was 11 and we were the same age, Ananda Dean was 11 years old, and they found her, trigger warning by the way before I get into that story, they found her body, wow, I think she was like chopped up or something, but they found her mutilated and they killed her. I think they also will not say the word because trigger warning, but she was sexually abused and then killed, and she was only 11 years old. And that scared me as a little girl, because you're 11-year-olds, you're just in grade 5. You're in a grade 5, grade 6, and you're taking the bus home, you're walking home. And I think that was when I realized that, wow, yeah, that there's a difference. And you weren't seeing no like little boys on the news going missing like that and then being found in XYZ condition. So I think that is when I really realized, or my earliest memory of just being very afraid. And I was just so afraid. And that's when that fear or that awareness of that kicked in. And then after that, you start to realize little things like some of the roles. And you go to high school and you're in primary school, and then you're like, oh, boys gonna come help with the chair, and then girls are girls, you must only do learning to sew, and so you have brownies and stuff like that. And then boys are pushed into like sports where you have boys day and you have girls day. I remember boys day and girls day, and I think we had a boys day and girls day in high school, where in girls day you talk about your periods and what to expect when you're going through puberty, and then we never talk about what the boys are gonna go through. And only girls there, and they talk about your period in such a hush way. I don't think that's the case now in prep and primary school in Jamaica, because of the work that her flow is doing with periods, at least. Love that. But you'd have that distinction between the two. And then boys they always I feel like they always did the cool stuff. Like they would go on like trips, and then them teach them how to fight, or them go run up and down outside, or them do sports. And like we did have an insider learn about period alone. I didn't mean to say it like that, but it's true. And I feel like they should have been learning it too. Or like etiquette. Mind you, I have fantastic etiquette now, but I'm saying it would have been really good if we had introduced some of the boys to stuff like this. So that's like primary and prep school, and then a little bit of high school, and then going into high school now, guys. Ooh, this is, I feel like that for any adolescent, I'll start there. Between the ages of 13 to 16 or 17 is like you are going through it, because you are finding yourself and you're just getting used to your own body, and then you're having to get used to the perception and the outside world seeing you in this new body. And you're dealing with raging hormones and then insecurities and all of that stuff. So I feel like I would not want to be a teenager again. I'm sorry, my baby sister, you'll be fine. And so that's the baseline. And then you're in Jamaica, where the culture in and of itself is hypersexual, we have a hypersexual culture. And it's so funny because it's in juxtaposition with the fact that we're a very Christian culture too. And it's like, it's funny, they always say we have the most churches by what square miles in the world or something like that in Jamaica, but also we have the most bars. And that just goes to show we don't even know what we want to be as a culture. So very conservative and Christian like that. But then on the flip side, we're also very hypersexual. So it's just very interesting. So all of that combined, and you're going through high school. And so here, by now, I'm realizing that there's a certain game you have to play. There's a certain way to do things. This is what you expect when you go on the road. It's like, you can't even exist without getting a what do you call it? A cat call from a guy that's twice your senior. And then you have the teachers who you're supposed to also trust. So it's just ghetto is the word I will use to describe that. But hey, we learn to deal with it. Being a teen and being a teenage girl, I feel like it's a unspoken rule or something that's just understood by all Jamaican women. And I'm speaking for Jamaican women because I'm Jamaican. And yeah, it's just something that it's just understood. So it's not something you necessarily complain about because yeah, your grandmother and mother had to go through that too. And it's just culture. It's just a part of culture. And people don't complain about culture. It's just culture. You deal with it. We don't complain about it until we reach a breaking point, which I'll probably talk about next. So teen and in high school, and then at the end of high school, going back to my personal story now, is we birth Girls Who Know Jamaica. Woo! Girls Who Know JA, my baby, my heart. Mentioned a trigger warning earlier, but I don't feel like many people know this story. I don't think anyone really. But Girls Who Know, I feel like I've always had an interest in just advocacy and just learning about people who are not like myself. Because I don't know, I always thought that if I'm in a vulnerable position and I know that I'm also in a vulnerable position, I would want someone to advocate for me or treat me just and go as hard for me as they would go for themselves. So I always wanted to arm myself with as much knowledge as possible to be able to do that. And so I started joining like these little groups, advocacy groups, things to enable my voice to be heard. And in doing that, it was so funny. Another parallel, I experienced some sexual harassment, abuse, whatever you'd want to call it, and that flipped the switch from having to learn about it and trying to learn about it to know I forgot burn some tire, we have to go out there. And so in that movement, I felt like there was so much learning that I was also learning, healing that I was also healing, rage probably, and in an effort to help other people, I was also helping myself. So Girls Who Know Jamaica, what a time. If I can find some pictures, and if you're watching this on YouTube, an amazing time. We had the first comprehensive sexuality education forum that we invited like a bunch of different high schools to, and had them come out and basically pulled in different health professionals to ask them questions and just have a honest conversation. It was so simple, but I can't believe that we were not doing that. Big 21st century, we weren't doing that. And I learned so many things that I didn't even know. I didn't even know I didn't know. Yes, I learned so many things. So I felt like if I was having all of these thoughts and all of these questions, I can imagine how many other people had those thoughts and questions too. And another thing that sparked it for me too was just, I feel like I was just tired of norm. And I feel like it is still the norm. I know there are lots of organizations working to change that. But the norm when it comes to issues surrounding abuse, harassment against women, and how the media portrays it, I think that was my turning point. And a story came out where a minor was abused or harassed by, I think it was a pastor, and how the news article framed it pissed me off was the fact that, oh, this underage girl was in relations and had intercourse with this man who is a pastor. I'm like, don't you mean that that was a crime? What are you saying that she did in whatever situation that was? Yes, that's the only way it could be. If she's a minor, that's what are you saying? So it was finding, I feel like they were just finding in every single way, and a lot of the stories that come out, it's always finding in some way, shape, or form, explicitly or implicitly, a way to like shift the blame to the victim. I know people have issues with, oh, sometimes there's personal responsibility, yada, but if the victim is a minor, this person is 2 years her senior, twice her age. What are we really defending there? And then we have to interrogate. So why are you defending that behavior? So that was the point. That was the point for me, where I was like, no, something absolutely has to give here. And so this is where we are. We've done, so when I look back at the work, my heart is so full. We did some amazing work, and there's more to come. girlswhoknowja.com, on Instagram, on Gmail, anywhere you can find us. But another thing that taught me, and being, I guess, like removed from culture and just watching it from the sidelines, Jamaican culture that is, because I don't live there anymore, is that, or things that we have attached to our culture, like, for example, social media is playing its part. TikTok, Instagram, YouTube is only going to magnify what is the current status quo right now in our society. So that's why you have the music, and this is not an episode that is bashing dancehall music, but there's something to be said for what goes viral and what we dance up to club and whatever in the dance too, and what we aren't. Like, there's something to be said about that. Not bashing it, but we still have to critique it and interrogate it same way. To the point of me watching from the sidelines or not being as involved, I feel like I have been able to just, like, you know, do my inner work, heal, and then think about ways that we can approach the movement so that it's sustainable. Because we need to include both parties. Are we gonna fight the patriarchy without the patriarch? We don't have allies. So that's a huge question that's been on my mind. And then you're seeing we're doing so much as women, focusing on girls and women, but not necessarily attacking like systems that are in place that make us have to work so hard. And then we're not focusing on the systems that are. We have to also interrogate the system and burn down the system where tell men and boys that they can't cry, that their mental health isn't important, or, you know, their only value in this world is if they can provide, and that is what makes them a man, and only that. So, you know, like, those are the real things that have been on my mind, and it's just sad to see and infuriating almost that, you know, people are just on here popping the balloon. I'm kidding. No, but like, just having these conversations that aren't really trying to solve an issue, but trying to like prove their point right or wrong, or prove why this should be this, and then make fun of people or degrade other people that don't live the same lifestyle as them. So it's crazy. So those are some of the things that have been on my mind for the past couple of years, as I think about how to, when I do show up and I'm contributing to the movement in a way that's going to make sense, like what will that be and how is that going to be sustainable? So I feel like I've spoken I've spoken a lot. Let me end off my little solo episode with all my episodes are solo, by the way. That was a joke. But I asked Instagram to tell me what are like some things that aren't true, or what are some misconceptions, or I asked Instagram to tell me things that they wish weren't true for, different genders in their culture, and mainly Jamaicans answered. So one thing I have here is that men shouldn't show emotions. They are laughed at if they do show emotions from too early. Mothers show up way more for their kids in school than their fathers. It's okay for men to have multiple partners, but women are looked down on when they do the same. Women completing degrees at an early age and men going straight to the working world. That's true. Definitely housework. Why is it gender based? Someone else says men not talking about their feelings. Somebody says, this is interesting, this is an interesting one. They say women being girl bosses and leading in hustle cultures and climbing corporate ladders. Women, and then on the flip side, someone else says women making and doing all of the house chores like cleaning and cooking, and then the man has to be the main provider, mainly financially. That the women plan everything and handle the mental load, and men just receive the instructions. And then lastly, I have hypersexuality. These are all really good, and in my upcoming episodes I hope to bring it back to the pop culture. So I'll probably talk about something relating to like the balloon. Oh my gosh, I don't know why that kind of irks me. And there are some of them that are really good, but then there are others of them that are just for the fun, are just for the jokes. But that really says something though about what people are looking for, or what we think they're looking for right now. But let me know in the comments below. Rate if you're listening to this on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Rate it, leave a comment, show me some love, and let me know what it was like for you growing up as a woman. What are some of the things that you could or couldn't do as a girl? And let me know what you want to see in the coming episodes. This is just a brain dump for me. Thanks for listening, and until next time, with love from Chels. Bye.